Thanks very much for being on the show. Casey Hunt has the first question. Casey?
Congressman, it's great to see you this morning, as always. The House devolved yesterday into infighting, and we saw this emotional displays on the floor from the Speaker, and of course from Republicans who did not vote to condemn, by and large, the president's racist tweets. My question for you is, how do Democrats rise above this debate? How do you get our discourse back to a point where we're talking about the issues that really matter to all Americans, to voters who are going to be picking a president in 2020? It's clearly the president's goal here is to keep dragging this discussion into a really terrible place. So how do you move forward?
Well, the Republican playbook is to delay, deny, and distract, and that's what we saw on full display yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives. The signature legislative accomplishment that they have achieved when they held power in the previous Congress was to jam a GOP tax scam down the throats of the American people, where 83% of the benefits went to the wealthiest 1%. They don't want to talk about that. The administration is currently trying to take away health care protection from more than 130 million Americans who have pre-existing conditions. They don't want to talk about that. There are currently children held in cages in inhumane conditions by our government on the U.S.-Mexico border. They don't want to talk about that. So that's why we saw that aberrant Republican behavior on the floor. We appropriately and strongly condemn the president's xenophobic attack on 4 congresswomen of color. And now we're getting back to doing the business of the American people. Tomorrow, we will pass the Raise the Wage Act, because every American deserves a living wage, and we want to make sure that we increase pay for everyday Americans, as we promised that we would do. And we're going to continue to work on lowering health care costs and fixing our crumbling infrastructure. Kitchen table pocketbook issues important to the American people.
Mr. Chairman, it's Willie Geist. It's good to see you this morning. It was just a few days ago, in fact, before the president started attacking these 4 congresswomen, that you were moderating effectively a fight within your own party between the Speaker and these 4 congressmen that we're talking about the direction of the party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez accusing the Speaker of the House of targeting them because they're women of color. What is your view of the dangers, the perils for your caucus right now with that interscene debate?
Well, we are an enthusiastic group. We are a diverse group. We're a passionate group, and sometimes there are differences in perspective, but we are going to continue to move forward together. Donald Trump, once again, with his racist tweet, reminded the American people that there is a cancer on the presidency. The progressives are not the problem. The New Dems are not the problem. The Blue Dogs are not the problem. The birther-in-chief is the problem. That's a unifying theme, not just for the House Democratic Caucus, but for the nation, because the existential threat to our democracy, to our way of life, to our values is so severe. So we're going to proceed forward together to execute on our For the People agenda. He's trying to divide the nation. We believe in prosperity in every single zip code, and that's what unifies House Democrats.
Do you agree with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez? Pelosi targets them because they're women of color?
Not at all. And members of the Congressional Black Caucus, myself included, strongly disagreed with those remarks. She's been incredibly supportive of women of color throughout the House Democratic Caucus and throughout the nation, and she will continue to do so.
Elise?
Congressman, the House is going to vote on almost doubling the minimum wage to $15, and it's unlikely to pass the Senate. Why is it such a big increase when disproportionately perhaps that might not actually, it might harm rural areas with already high unemployment?
Well, of course, it's a graduated increase, and many economists who have studied this issue on balance have concluded that a minimum wage increase at a level of $15 per hour will do things such as increasing consumer demand, increase purchasing power, allow the American people to get more involved in the economy, and at the end of the day, be beneficial. We also have to decide that in a country that is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, shouldn't every single American have an opportunity to robustly pursue the American dream? No American should ever have to choose between putting food on the table, paying the rent, paying the mortgage, sending their child to college, and getting access to increasingly high-costing, life-saving prescription drugs. So an important step in that regard is to make sure that there's a living wage for every single American. That's why we believe this is a significant step in the right direction.